Did you feel confused after watching Howl's Moving Castle? I know I did. The first time I watched this movie, it wasn't a very impressive experience. I even felt that the movie lacked a strong climax. Most of what attracted me during that first viewing was the stunning visuals and the excellent soundtrack. However, immediately after, I had to question myself. Was I missing something while watching this movie? Because this is one of Ghibli's masterpieces, after all. So, after many years, I decided to rewatch it, and I immediately admitted that I was wrong. Before we begin, in this video I will cover almost every detail in the movie. So if you haven't watched Howl's Moving Castle yet, please experience this movie at least once and then come back here. And if you have watched it, please know that the meanings and theories I present in this video are entirely my personal interpretation and not imposed facts. The story begins with Sophie, a young girl trying to maintain the hat shop left by her father. Once, while going to see her sister, Sophie encountered the wizard Howl and fell in love with him from that moment. After returning home, Sophie was followed by the Witch of the Waste. She is a witch who always seeks the hearts of young men, and this time her target is the wizard Howl. Sophie got angry when interrogated and tried to chase her out of the house. However, this witch cast a terrible curse on her, turning her into a frail old woman. That is the main event that started Sophie's entire journey in the later part of the movie. But the question here is, was that curse really just about changing Sophie's body to become old and aged? The dialogues in the movie do not explain in detail what the curse is. Howl said it was an ancient curse, but very powerful. The Witch of the Waste only knew how to cast it, not how to break it. And Sophie couldn't open her mouth to tell others how she was cursed. Fortunately, director Hayao Miyazaki still planted very subtle details for us to speculate, and at the same time draw meaningful life messages from that curse. First, it can be confirmed that it wasn't a curse that turned Sophie old forever. The proof is that there are many scenes where she became young again for a moment, then immediately turned back into an old woman. Why is that? To explain that phenomenon, we need to look back at the development of this character. In the first scenes of the movie, Sophie appeared as a girl with low self-esteem, timid, and always living in her own shell. While all the girls around Sophie, including her sister, wore very colorful makeup, dressed in stylish clothes, and eagerly went out to have fun, Sophie, on the contrary, was simple, closed off, and sometimes a bit indifferent to everything happening around her. She looked at herself in the mirror, smiled for a moment, but immediately pulled her hat down to cover her face. She couldn't answer her sister's question about how long she would continue their father's hat-making business. She didn't know what she wanted to do either. Just paying a little attention, one could see that Sophie rarely smiled. Sophie was young, but her lifestyle wasn't young at all. Even when turned into an old woman, we see that Sophie's reaction wasn't too panicked, and with just a few self-reassuring sentences, Sophie was able to immediately get used to it. But Howl's appearance and the journey on the moving castle changed everything. Those rare times she returned to the form of a young girl were when she was living true to herself, a soul full of youth. Sophie became young again when saying good things about the person she loved, when strolling with Howl on the flower field. Sophie became young again when being a brave woman, trying to rescue everyone from the fire. But with just a bit of self-doubt, Sophie would immediately return to her old lifestyle and turn back into an old woman. From those details, it can be understood that the curse the Witch of the Waste cast on Sophie is a magic that transforms Sophie's external appearance, according to her mind. Meaning, if Sophie still lives the old lifestyle, she will forever be an old woman. But if she escapes her shell, she will become a beautiful young girl again. To understand simply, this curse is like a mirror reflecting Sophie's soul. No magic can break this curse except Sophie herself. Like at the end of the movie, Sophie was immersed in love again, merged into happiness, and we see she became young again. The journey Sophie took to find her youth again is like the journey to find herself. An adventure that wasn't easy at all, and she had to go through a lot, learn a lot, to be able to realize her true worth. Hayao Miyazaki, as in his other works, always subtly elevates women without forcing it. He lets women decide their own happiness, learn to live a meaningful life, and find their core values. Wizard Howl is a peace lover. Whatever they are, they're all the same, all murderers. A small line, along with his serious eyes in this scene, is enough to let us know how much Howl hates war. Let's reverse a bit. Howl once said he was a coward and spent his life running away from the pursuit of the royal witch Suleiman. But with what we've seen about him, it would be more accurate to say that actually he was running away from war. Below, I will try to bring up theories to explain the questions. Why was Howl pursued by Suleiman's army? The true meaning of the castle and the origin of Calcifer. First, we need to go back to the conversation between Howl and Sophie when he tried to convince her to pretend to be the mother of Wizard Pendragon, the alias he used to disguise himself. Whenever summoned, Howl wanted Sophie to meet Suleiman and say that he was a useless person and couldn't join the army to fight. At this point, viewers learned that in the past, before attending the magic school, Howl had to sign an oath swearing to always serve his king. This immediately made me think that the royal witch Suleiman also had to comply with a similar commitment. It's even more plausible since she was in a very high position in the royal army. Then, after Sophie arrived at the palace, Suleiman said that Howl was a powerful wizard who had made a deal with a demon. According to her, Howl was using that power selfishly and only for himself. And if he didn't surrender to serve the army, the magic power would gradually consume him, and the consequence would turn him into this old woman. At first, I believed Suleiman, and clearly Howl had made a deal with Calcifer and received powerful magic from this creature. But the closer I watched to the end of the movie, the more I thought that Suleiman had lied, and her always trying to hunt down Howl had a reason. This part gets a bit complicated. The first theory, and also the biggest leap in this video, is that in my opinion, the flame Calcifer is Suleiman's own magic. Why is that? To explain the above statement, we will look at the most common form of magic of Suleiman, which are blue shooting stars and dancing figures. The first time viewers see her use shooting stars was to attack Howl, and the figures also appeared here. At the same time, they were also used to strip the power of the Witch of the Waste. Coincidentally, in Howl's past, when he was making the pact with Calcifer and giving his heart to this flame, he also received Calcifer from a shooting star. And it's also a coincidence that the figures also appeared there. From here, I understand that Suleiman herself was the one who granted Howl the power of Calcifer, and this flame helped Howl operate the castle. That's why this castle was used primarily to become Howl's hideout, while helping him run away from Suleiman's pursuit. But the doubt here is, why would Suleiman grant Howl the power to run away from herself? The second theory is, in my opinion, Suleiman is not a person who loves fighting and didn't want Howl to join the army either. The proof is, as I said, just like Howl, she was bound by the agreement to absolutely obey the royal family. And what she could do was give Howl the ability to get as far away from the war as possible. Thus, the words she said to Sophie above were completely lies. Suleiman didn't want to fight, she was only serving a bellicose king. Now we will talk about the relationship between Howl and Calcifer, two beings whose lives were bound together. Howl gave Calcifer his heart, and Calcifer created and operated the castle. As mentioned, Howl is a person who loves peace very much, so he used the castle as a way to escape. However, both still wanted to break the contract to gain freedom, and to do that, Howl had to regain his heart. But taking his heart out along with the castle meant that it would collapse. Or in other words, to have freedom, Howl had to stop running and accept losing his shelter. For Howl to accept that, Sophie and her love were the perfect catalyst. First is the fact that Howl no longer had to face the war. When the battle broke out, it was due to the disappearance of the neighboring Prince Justin. Do you remember Turnip Head? At the end of the movie, viewers learned that he was Prince Justin. A curse had been cast on him, turning him into a scarecrow, and Sophie helped him break that curse with a kiss. The problem was solved, and the war ended. Second, more importantly, is the fact that Howl had to truly accept that he would never run away from war again. That was when he personally fought against planes and bombs to protect the person he loved. Sophie also bravely took Howl's heart out of the castle so Howl wouldn't have to protect it anymore. Although the castle collapsed, Sophie returned Howl's heart to its rightful place. So the pact between Howl and Calcifer was broken, returning freedom to both. The war ended, Howl was free. Sophie lived true to herself. Both lived happily. A fulfilling ending for all our characters.